doors are closing.
Public transit, that's my way to roll. On the metro, I'm taking control. Bus stops, train tracks, it's my daily grind. Public transit, it's the rhythm of my life.
On this episode of Transit Tangents, we take a look at the most basic form of public transit with fresh eyes, riding the bus. Join us as we navigate the city of Austin, Texas with a first-time bus rider. What went well, what didn't, and a whole lot more coming up on Transit Tangents.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Transit Tangents. My name's Chris.
And I'm Lewis.
And today we are diving into our first challenge on the podcast, which is very exciting.
Totally. So we mentioned this previously that we're going to kind of get the podcast really going with a focus on buses. Buses are kind of the long lost thing. Everyone thinks public transit, train immediately.
Yeah.
But buses are way more common. You're way more likely to find them in your city. And so many people don't use them for whatever reason.
Yeah, a lot of people don't use the buses. I think there's a lot of topics we can get into on that. There's probably some prejudices and biases that come with riding the bus. But we want to really challenge those notions and try to change people's perspectives, especially for people who live in parts of the city where the bus is a really viable way to get around, which is really what we wanted to focus on in this challenge. So Lewis and I, we sort of racked our brains, went through a giant list of people that we knew, trying to decide who is a public transit user and who's not, because what we wanted to do was find one of our friends who really had never used public transit before.
Mm-hmm. And essentially, our friend Michelle was nice enough to volunteer to join us for this.
To be our guinea pig.
Yes, yeah. And she has not used public transit in Austin ever before. So we wanted to set the challenge to essentially, leave from her apartment with the idea that we're going to be meeting friends for drinks in a part of the city close to downtown around 6 p.m. And then to hang out, have drinks, do dinner, and then make our way back home to Michelle's place. So it was a fun challenge to go out and do together. We're going to kind of go ahead and just start watching the actual footage from the challenge when we went and did it. And we'll kind of pop in and out intermittently throughout to kind of give more context to what was going on. So let's dive right into it.
All right. So in your words, what are we doing today?
What are we doing today? I would say today. So this is our first shoot day on the podcast here. We are going out with one of our friends who I believe she hasn't ridden the bus in Austin at all before, or maybe very little.
Maybe once.
Okay. And we're gonna essentially do an experiment to see what it is like for somebody who has not used the bus before to attempt to use the bus, and in a way that it is like we're gonna start at her apartment, go downtown for a drink, head to another location for dinner, and then go home, and we're gonna see how that looks for somebody who is new to using the bus system here in Austin. Yeah.
Maybe we'll convince her to use the bus more often.
Maybe, yeah. And if not, we'll have some feedback of like how we could convince folks like her to use the bus more often in Austin. I honestly have no clue. I have no clue how it's gonna go.
And this is selfish for me because as you said, I don't really use the bus. A lot of that has to do with where I live. And the private vehicle is more convenient, and maybe I can replace one ride a week with a bus or something.
Right.
That may be the objective. So getting into this, how did you think Michelle was going to do in the very beginning?
I didn't know how it was going to go necessarily. I use the bus quite a bit, so at this point for me it's pretty easy. But I know when I first started using it, I was definitely confused. So not knowing what her first step was going to be makes it hard to say. It could have gone either really well or really poorly. Like if there are a couple things you don't do, it can go really poorly. But yeah,
I think we found some of those things that could have made the situation a lot worse, and thankfully you were there to help us out. Mm-hmm. Have you ever taught somebody how to use the bus before?
Not really, actually. I really haven't, because normally I'd be taking the bus by myself, or maybe with a partner, or if we have friends coming from out of town, basically, and they don't really care about how to use it, we would be using it to like go out downtown. And that doesn't happen very often because usually with a big group, we might do an Uber or something like that.
Yeah.
But to give more context, though, we're going to introduce Michelle here in a second. She lives in a part of town that isn't necessarily the greatest for public transit. It's not non-existent, but it's not perfect either, I guess.
I guess if you want to set the setting, she's sort of wedged between traditional neighborhoods and a brand new highway that includes a toll on it. So it is sort of this transportation no man's land in a way. And it does take a little bit of walking to get even to the closest transit stop, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the video.
Yeah. Before we actually started on this challenge, we sat down with Michelle to chat with her a little bit beforehand, and we asked her first what specifically was kind of preventing her from using public transit here in Austin.
But immediately it's just the time factor, because I know it takes time to find the bus, find the routes, where you're going to and from, and then if the buses are late, or I don't know how that works, like if it's 30 minutes and you miss the bus, you're actually an hour out. So it seems a lot harder to kind of make your plans around it if you have to be somewhere at a certain time.
Right.
We're going to give you a hypothetical. So we're getting towards the end of a workday, and let's suppose you have some friends who message you and say, hey, we want you to meet us out for drinks. I'll be there at 6 o'clock. That's the target today. So we're going to try to go to a location in town and be there by 6 o'clock. I think it's a pretty realistic scenario to what could happen on a day-to-day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then once we finish with drinks, we'll throw in another little random scenario, and we'll figure out how to navigate to it. So our goal today is to go to this bar. Are you familiar with Tweety's?
I'm not actually.
Okay, it's a bar called Tweety's in Central Austin. It's going to be very popular with UT students. It's a cool place to just hang out or study. But it's central to everything, and I think just a really cool place to go and grab a drink. So we'll navigate over there, and then we can hopefully cheers to our success.
Okay, well, so I think I'm going to start then by figuring out what the app is.
That works.
Oh my gosh.
My first thought anytime I go to a new city is if I'm going to figure out where I'm going, I look at like Google Maps. Like, what is Google Maps going to tell me? Because to be honest, I don't know if Cap Metro has an app that you can use to navigate. I've never tried it.
Oh, like how do you know the bus routes, right, and stuff? Isn't there a city app for the bus system?
Probably.
Itself?
We can look it up, see.
To see like the schedules, I guess.
Yeah.
But I need to know where we're going. So it's just the Austin Metro. So it's just Cap Metro.
This is good because I need to download the app anyway.
So here we go.
Yeah, I'm still not logged in.
So it looks like they do have though where you can put in where you're starting and you're ending, and it will plan your trip. So that's really cool.
That's really helpful.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, but so I'm putting in my address and then where I'm going, and so I want to search because it said as a trip planner. It's saying there's no suitable stops found near. But I do know there is one, maybe it just means very close. I have to look up which station this is, but it's saying there's one, I think 5:25, so in like 10 minutes.
So I think one thing that we both think was really impressive with Michelle was that her first thought was to look up Cap Metro's transit app, which I never thought to do. I travel pretty frequently around the country, and I never think to look at a local transit agency's app. My first instinct, as I said in the video, is I just pull up Google Maps or Apple Maps, and that's what I base my entire experience with the transit system on.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, the only reason I go for the app now is because of using Cap Metros so much. And there's pros and cons with the app. You're going to see more about this coming up.
Cap Metro did not pay for this ad.
No. Well, I mean, the fact that Michelle right away there was able to be like, oh, the trip planner tool, I can show where I'm at and where I'm going. That's great and all, but you heard her saying right there, and just to add some more context to this, there was a stop a 10-minute walk away from her apartment. The app showed no viable stops anywhere close by. And it was actually suggesting that she get in her car and drive like 15 minutes away to a stop, not anywhere really close to where we were, and then take the bus, which is obviously not a feasible thing that you would be doing in that situation for the most part. It would make, if you were in a car at that point, you just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, agreed. I think it was trying to take her to one of those park and ride facilities. Mm-hmm. So to Cap Metro's credit, They were trying to do something that would be convenient if you didn't live in a place where you could walk to that transit stop, and the maps may not have been updated for her neighborhood at the time.
Yeah, something like that. And Michelle, though, in the app on her own, found her own solution of physically looking at the map in the app and selecting the closest station and starting the trip from there.
I was not very helpful in that.
Part. But it was kind of awesome because that is kind of how I use the app. Is I'll kind of look at the map and see what stations are nearby, and I'll look up the next departure. So that was interesting. And it was one other thing that was funny to me, which you're going to hear from me directly as this was happening in a second. But Chris and Michelle found 2 different routes right from the beginning, and that was a little bit of a source of confusion that kind of got us started.
Absolutely.
I was trying to remain pretty quiet during all of this because I could have done this very
well, and
easily.
The goal was you weren't supposed to tell us what to do. You were there to guide if we truly got stuck.
Yeah.
And there were a couple places where you gave us very helpful hints, which we'll talk about. But the fact that we had 2 different routes was not frustrating, but it made it a little bit more challenging because one route was a little more direct than the other, but it required twice the amount of walking.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah.
So I say let's start walking down the path and see where we end up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'll be by either stop. We'll be pretty close to either stop. So
yeah,
if we need to detour, we can.
When we talk about Michelle's neighborhood being in this sort of transit no man's land, one thing that we should mention is that walking to the nearest bus stop requires you to sort of leave her apartment complex and follow this little winding concrete path. Meanwhile, it's Austin, Texas. It's hot. We were sweating on the walk.
Yeah, that's I forgot about the weather. It was super hot, and we're recording this on the first cold day of the year in forever. So I forgot, but it was disgusting that day.
You can see my shirt steadily getting more and more wet as we go through the podcast.
As we go through the challenge. I'll make sure to highlight those as we go.
Thanks. At the end of this exercise, what are you hoping to get out of the whole experience?
I actually really would like to see how it works here, and if I feel comfortable enough with it, I might do it for other happy hours with friends when I normally would call an Uber, or maybe even take the bus to the airport. I might be that brave. And I mean, let's say we had a really good public transport system, I might not even need a car because I don't have to worry about getting to work. So really, it's all the other stuff.
Right.
But not as...
And I think that's a good point, because I think that's something that we're missing in the conversation, especially on the city level, when we talk about public transit options, because you're a great example of sort of the modern Austinite. You work in tech, you are able to work remote, so you don't have to commute to an office every day. So what a lot of people are saying lately is because our work commutes have changed, that public transit isn't needed as much.
Yep.
And so there's this really vocal anti-transit group that's pushing that narrative that because you don't go to the office, why do we need to invest in this public transit?
And it's actually the opposite. The fact that I don't have to go into the office means I have less incentive to keep a car if I have other alternatives, if I need to go grocery shopping or to happy hours or stuff with my friends, other activities.
Yeah.
For drinks,
Public transit to...
Oh no, we missed it.
Oh no, we missed the bus.
So as we were walking on our way to this bus stop, we actually, in the distance, saw a bus right in front of us that drove away. That's definitely not the kind of scene you want to see, especially if you're on kind of a further out part of town where the bus system isn't super frequent. Luckily for us, this bus is frequent enough. But yeah, it was a sight for sore eyes as we were going by, but it ended up giving us a little bit of time to sort out the next difficulty in this process, which is purchasing bus tickets.
Yeah. Also, seeing your bus pull away from you brought back a lot of trauma that I didn't realize I had from being like a middle school student and rushing out of the door to catch my school bus and just seeing them leaving the neighborhood. And then having to tell my parents that, hey, I missed the bus. So I didn't tell you that in the moment, but
now I know.
Serious trauma.
This is actually like a pretty nice app, I think. So I'm impressed. I would never have looked before, probably.
So you're feeling pretty good about the app now.
Yeah, I think
Somebody is.
I can just create a ticket. So it made me a virtual bus ticket, and it looks like I can just add passes. So I click add. This local commuter. Okay, and so I'm gonna go with the local day pass. So I can just add that to the cart. And it looks like I can just check out. And I can choose my payment method.
And then I can do a single ride, a local day pass, local 7-day pass or more. So we're gonna take more than one ride. So I'm gonna say a day pass so that we can have it. I only need one. And I check out. And now I have a bus pass.
Nice.
This already makes me feel more comfortable about riding the bus in Austin because one of my biggest fears or what makes me most anxious is how do I pay? Mm-hmm. And not only how much it is, but one thing I love about transit systems like in New York is that you have a credit card that you can tap as you go through the kiosk. Like you don't even have to have a physical card anymore, but that is not the case here, it seems. So, or we'll find out, I guess, on the bus. But this already relieves some anxiety knowing that I have a pass. Now, I don't know how to use it, but we'll find out.
Yeah.
There's a bus coming right here.
Yeah.
So you should wave at it. I'm telling
Oh,
you.
yeah. That's a good, helpful hint, actually.
I'm about to wait for another one.
All right, you're gonna go first.
Go for it.
You got your thing up?
What does it scan under?
Oh, no, there it goes. Ah. Oh. There it goes. Thank you.
That was the fun part. Where do you like to sit on the bus?
Yeah, right. So here's a question. When we get to the point that we need to get off, do we know which stops you have to pull the cord on?
Oh, there are. Okay. Let's see on the app.
I don't know. That's actually a great place to look is how do you know when to pull the cord?
Because I'm assuming it's showing the actual stops.
Waiting for another bus.
Oh,
You might be
that's
waiting
true.
for-
Yeah. And that's good to know because
Yeah.
Is it smart enough to like know if you have your planned trip, like when you scan in on your bus, to know automatically to stop the bus for you?
I don't know.
Or where you could just like on your app put
That would
the
be cool.
destination stop in beforehand?
So the answer to that question, unfortunately, is no. That would be really cool to be able to trigger the bus to stop from the app. I've never even heard of that idea before. That is a really creative idea. And
Yeah.
it probably should be a thing, but
I think it'd be really useful because I don't know if there's anybody else out there like me, but I have anxiety when it comes to pulling the cord. I don't know when I'm supposed to pull the cord, and when you're in the back of the bus, it's really hard to tell where you are sort of spatially in the city, and you don't want to make a mistake.
right.
And
Cord
I don't-
anxiety.
And I don't want to piss off the bus driver. So yeah, there's definitely a level of cord anxiety.
It is fair too, because part of like the allure of riding the bus is you don't really have to pay as much attention while you're riding it as
Yeah.
you would if you were driving a car, obviously, or you would hope that you're paying a lot of attention if you're driving a car. And yeah, I mean, the bus system is, it's a very, I do have the map sitting right here. It's not it's well organized, but it's not small. I mean,
that map
there's-
is taller than you are.
There's there are a lot of places to go. Yeah, so definitely understandable to have.
Did you pull this off of the bus?
I did pull this off of the bus, yes. So these were sitting in the very front of the bus. Neither Chris nor Michelle noticed that while we were on the bus.
Yeah.
And I think at some point here...
You didn't just like steal this from
No,
us,
I did not.
good.
I did not steal it. It is available for anyone to take. So yeah, definitely something helpful in sorting out where you're going.
The next time I'm on the bus, I'm just gonna sit there like I'm reading a newspaper, just like have the whole thing up like this.
Yeah,
this is a ridiculous map.
It 100% is. So I mentioned that there were two. I mentioned that there were two options for bus trips to go from Michelle's to the restaurant downtown that we were heading to. Michelle had found one, Chris had found the other. The one that we ended up actually taking was the one Michelle had mentioned, and that bus required a transfer.
And we didn't follow the Cat Metro guideline. So one thing we learned about the app is that once you plan a trip, if you want to see if another transfer is going to work and you exit out of that trip, you can't get back into it. So if you're not very tech savvy, you have lost the trip you planned. You have to, improvise while you're on the bus, while the bus is steadily moving toward your destination. It gets really stressful. So what we did was we wanted to see if there was a quicker transfer, because the bus actually had us going a stop or two out of the way. And we knew that there was going to be a busier line. Because I think as we say, in the video a few times, that we assume that the bigger roads or the busier roads are going to have more buses moving at a more regular pace. So that was the goal. We realized we wanted to be on a busier road. Yeah, and then we exited out of the app and got stuck.
Yeah, and for context for folks, and we'll pull up the bus map here on the screen magically. Basically we took the 337 to the 801 is what we ended up doing in practice. The app, though, did not recommend that at first. They were suggesting the 337 to the 3, I believe.
Really glad you remembered these, because I did not remember the bus numbers.
No, yeah, it's so just so you can see, and making the decision on the fly is not necessarily easy.
No, not at all. I don't think I brought any.
Yeah, you don't want to leave anything on the bus.
All right, this is it.
Y'all go ahead of me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, first bus ride in Austin.
Not bad.
Not bad, yeah.
A little confusing on
little
the
bit.
app, but
yeah, the app I think is going to be that's going to be one of the harder things to overcome for a lot of people, especially people who aren't very tech savvy, probably.
Yeah, it would be hard if you didn't have a phone.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so we know
So we're on the 801.
We know that we're going for the 801. It says that the 801 is due.
Yep.
So that should be our next stop, which is good timing for us, hopefully.
Okay.
All right, day pass.
Do you have to scan in the front?
Yeah, can you scan in the back? Are you happy in the front? You can? Oh. Well, now we know.
Did it go through?
There we go.
Come on. There we go. All right, so what's our next stop?
Okay, it would be 31st Street Station. Is that what you
So
got?
that is one of them. I think we can actually go another down, so it makes like a little bit less of a walk.
Yeah.
That was thanks to Lewis's direction.
That was my sheet.
So,
This one here.
Fortunately, the transfer between the 337 and the 801 was only 2 minutes or so. That is not always the case. I rarely do transfers. You'll hear from us talking about this in a second, where we actually successfully did make it to our first destination. But fortunately, though, we did. Yeah, we had a quick transfer. The stop was also very close to the stop that we needed to transfer for. It was pretty clearly marked, and you saw that they actually had the timing of the next bus arriving at that station, which is common on the kind of rapid buses in Austin, at least. So yeah.
that way.
Wow. All right, it's feeling a little feel better out here too now. It's getting cooler.
The heat is not near as
Yeah.
bad as it was. Yeah, that's nice. All right. What part of town are we in?
All right. We're close.
Off 31st Street.
You really earned that drink, if I do say so myself.
No kidding.
Heck yeah.
It's gonna be really nice.
Less like of the knickknacks, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
Awesome. Well, cheers.
Yes, we made it. Yeah.
Really? I'm sorry, one second. I just got the worst brain freeze.
No.
Oh my God. It just, like, I tried really hard to not
That's hilarious.
let it affect me.
The margarita just ending it for Chris.
Oh, that hit right above my eyeball.
Oh no.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. I'm okay. You don't take transfers. And I think that's a good point, because goes back to what we talked about earlier. Is I asked you in the car, how did living on the bus lines affect your choice in where you live? And if you are trying to avoid transfers, or you know that you're going to actively use the bus, it absolutely affects where you want to be in town.
Absolutely, yeah.
Whereas, you know, Michelle, you're probably, if you use the bus, are going to have to take a transfer, I assume, for most cases.
Yeah.
Right? We could have got here without one. It would have just taken longer to get to that station.
Yeah, I think it would. Fast. Oh,
Very
it would have been a
close.
little faster.
Yeah.
And the 20. Here.
Yeah.
10 minutes or so.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was another 10 or 15 minutes behind.
But for us.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We talked about a couple other things as well in that conversation, including the kind of headway between buses, how long there is between each bus coming, essentially. So in Austin, it's pretty common for there to be a 15-minute headway on, you know, some of the more main bus lines, if you will. Unfortunately, there are also a lot of buses that are every 30 minutes.
Well, the one that we started at, I think it eventually goes to every 30 minutes, right?
Yes. So the first bus we were on, when we got on it, it was every 15 minutes. And that's why when we saw the one bus go away, it wasn't the end of the world, because another bus was there 15 minutes later. Right. We had a couple more minutes of walking, and then these guys had to figure out how to buy tickets and everything. So it actually worked out well. But if you miss a bus that's every half an hour, that sucks. Like that sucks. Or if a bus is canceled on a route that's every half an hour, like you could be sitting there for an hour.
That's a huge impact on your commute time, especially if you're trying to get there by a specific time. Mm-hmm. One part of public transit is it does kind of put it back on the rider to make sure they are at the stop on time. Right. It's, you know, you have a little less flexibility in that front.
For sure. Fortunately, though, too, the kind of two main lines in Austin, the rapid routes, during peak times, they're every 10 minutes. I'm fortunate to live on two of those lines. They kind of intersect right where I live, which is nice. But, you know, most of the city isn't there. I would make the argument, though, that having more lines isn't necessarily as good as having the lines that you do have, having better headways and creating like good areas to do it versus, you know, if there's you can spread bus routes all over the city, sure. But if they're only coming once an hour, that's not a feasible option for so many people. But anyway, we walked over to another place close by. We got some dinner, and then we figured out how we were going to make it back home. Were we going to take the same route back to Michelle's, or were we going to take a different one?
Oh, okay. So in 18 minutes. So by the time we walk over there, it'll only be like 8 minutes. So if we go now, we can catch a 20 in 18 minutes. It's at the Dean Keaton Station.
How are you finding that? Did you just look up like near you?
So I went to the trip planner and I clicked on the station that I wanted to go to.
Oh, so you just.
And then I
like,
looked
zoomed
at the schedule, yeah. So then if you zoom down
in. Oh, I see. And you just knew, like,
on Dean Keaton, yeah.
It's the 20. This is where we need to be.
Thanks.
Back, you know. Yes.
Definitely busier.
Yeah.
Okay, this looks more normal. Bus, like.
Yeah, for sure. So what we realized at dinner when I pulled up my app to see which buses we would take back, I actually found the original route that was going to take me to the bar that we went to. So the original route that I pulled up at Michelle's apartment, which was the 20. And fortunately, the station for the 20 was only maybe a 10-minute walk from the restaurant.
Not even, I feel like.
Yeah, so that's the direction that we went.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the perk of the 20 is one bus, no transfers. We did have a little bit of a longer walk at the end, which we did. It was pitch black out, so we don't really have much visuals for those of you who watched this on YouTube or audio. Well, there would have been audio, I guess.
Yeah.
But it would have been just us walking along.
It would have been us saying, wow, it's really dark.
But anyway, we made it back to Michelle's apartment complex, and we sat down with her to kind of see how things went afterwards, to get her take on how the evening went. I guess after going through this, do you think you are more likely or less likely to kind of use the bus for anything going forward?
Definitely more likely to do it just because now I've experienced it and I kind of know what to expect and I feel more comfortable. And that's usually like the thing I have to overcome.
Right.
So yeah, I think I totally would, especially like to go out for drinks because then I don't have to get an Uber because that's what I usually do.
Yeah.
So it saves a lot.
Cheaper than an Uber.
Yeah.
Way cheaper than an Uber. Yeah.
And again, kind of fun if you go with friends.
Yeah, you can chit chat the whole way. You can meet new people on the bus like we did twice today.
Yeah,
We
people
had
were very
multiple
interested.
People wanting to talk to us. But we did have the cameras, so I think that was a little bit of an icebreaker, if you will. But yeah.
What that tells me though is that the transit systems people are really engaged with transit systems, and what we learned today is they like talking about them.
Yeah.
The people who use those systems, they want to talk about it. And that was really encouraging.
While I think we might have failed the challenge as far as getting to the place for drinks on time, I think we probably ended up getting there at 6:30 or so.
We were about 32 minutes past the time we expected to be there.
Right. So that's a fail there, but I definitely think it's a massive W, if you will, as the kids say. Do the kids say that? I don't know.
As the kids say.
I don't think they say.
At what point did millennials
I don't know.
become baby boomers? Jesus.
Is well, as they say, as whoever says, that's a big win for us
We're
to have.
We're never going to get traction on TikTok.
I think it's a big win to have Michelle saying that she would use the bus more.
Absolutely.
After this. Yeah, I mean, even though she's not in a very convenient part of town to be able to use the bus, it took probably an hour to get downtown and maybe slightly less coming back because we did the walking option, or taking the 20 with no transfer and having a longer walk. That's not convenient for the most part time-wise, but if you're talking about the financial side of it, comparing that to getting an Uber in and out, if you're going out, drinking with friends or going to a concert or something like that, I think that's a big win. And that is how a lot of people in Austin could consider using public transit, even if they're not using it every single day.
Right.
You mentioned in the very beginning, if I can replace one trip a week or one trip a month or whatever it might be even, that's a step in the right direction. And I think to get people just their foot in the door, their feet wet, trying to get them out to take one trip on it, to understand how it works is where a lot of effort should be put. I don't know.
Absolutely. It's such a benefit to the city and to our communities too, because you got to look at it from the environmental aspect, right? But you also look at it from a congestion aspect. That's one less car on the road if you're replacing one or more of your trips a week with public transit. So if it is a viable option for you, if you live in a part of town, especially in Austin, where the bus stop is not a far walk, maybe this encourages you to take another look at it.
Totally, yeah. I mean, look it up, see where it is, see how frequent it is, see where it goes, see, what the next closest one, because a stop that might be just a slightly further walk might take you a whole lot more places. And that's, sure here in Austin, but anywhere. Look around, see what routes run near your home. I know for me, living in a spot close to bus transit was actually a big thing for me because we have one car in our house and there's two of us and we're not always going the same place. So we ended up in a part of town where we can get 4 or 5 buses within a 5-minute walk of our apartment. If you're starting to think about those sorts of things when you're making decisions about where you want to live and all that, and that's a whole other conversation really, you can start to think about, maybe I don't need to be having 2 car payments. Maybe I can save some money on the Uber or save some money on parking or not need to park way far away and get dropped off right in front of where I'm going. So, while the bus might not always be the most convenient time option, it could be convenient for a whole lot of other reasons. And who knows, it could be convenient on time if you're in a place where you've got rapid routes or a separate bus lane or whatever it may be. It ultimately could be the right solution for you.
I also want to take a minute and really call out Cap Metro because I think we have a perception for non-bus users. We have a perception that they could be doing more, and maybe that's true. But what I learned in this entire process is that Cap Metro is doing a lot to encourage people to ride the bus. I alluded to the fact that they need a walkthrough video of how to use the bus. After we did this exercise, I went to the website, and there's an entire section of the website with how-to videos and guides, how to pay for the bus, how to use it, how to use the app. So the resources are out there, and Cap Metro has done a really good job providing those resources.
And so many people, I would say too, and you're the one who usually brings this up, is like, oh, I wish my city had better public transit, or I would use it if it was there. And the thing is the bus. I always say the bus isn't sexy. People will take trains, they won't take buses. Try taking the bus because, again, it's not perfect, but your city is definitely not going to invest more in public transit when people who are against public transit look at a bunch of empty buses around. And fortunately in Austin, as somebody who uses the bus quite a bit, some of the outskirt routes, like the first bus we got on this trip, sure, they're quiet because they're kind of connector routes, they're feeder routes trying to get people into the main lines. Most of the main routes in Austin are very, very busy. It's not abnormal to get onto a bus and it's standing room only. And when cities see that sort of usage of the existing system, they're going to consider upgrading that to light rail or a subway or whatever it may be. And that's why when we see the plans for the city of Austin, the lines that they are talking about putting rail on are the bus routes that see
bus routes.
1 to 2 million, users per year. And it's
And that's the thing. One thing that drives me crazy in the conversation about transit is when people say, well, nobody uses this. Well, just because you don't use it doesn't mean other people don't use it. Cap Metro has 78 bus routes running through the Austin area. And as far as ridership goes, it's 2.2 million riders per month, over 20 million rides per year.
Right.
I mean, these are big numbers. These are a lot of people using this system to get around. Even in the city of Austin, it's about 30% of our commuters use a means of getting to work that's not a personal car. Right. And that could be carpool, that can be public transit, it could be the fact they work from home.
Could be an e-bike.
Could be an e-bike, exactly. Could be walking. But the fact that 30% of the city is not using a personal vehicle to get to work, those are huge numbers.
Right.
And Cap Metro and Project Connect, they can capitalize on that ridership.
And I would say if you're somebody who wants to keep taking your car to work, or you have friends who are very much like, I don't want to spend the money on this, it's not going to fix traffic. Even if that person isn't going to take it, you can tell them that if the system is better, more people will take it. It doesn't have to be them, and there will be less cars on the road for them to deal with. So if you want to eliminate traffic, maybe you're not going to take the train, but if other people will take the train, you're going to have the benefits of less people on the road.
Yeah. And we should advocate for ways to make life easier for people. And I think having those transit options is just going to make life easier for people.
Totally. And not to mention, especially for people who can't necessarily drive everywhere. You've got elderly folks with disabilities, kids who don't have their license yet, people who can't afford a car. It's not that everyone can just drive from point A to point B. They deserve to have some choices here.
And that is actually, when we talk about gaps in public transit, that is a big gap, especially for people who need mobility assistance. And one thing that the Austin area does that I'm really proud to tell people about is that if you do have a mobility issue, you can contact Cap Metro, and there is a service that will come to your house and pick you up and transport you. Now, I don't know what the cost associated with that service is, if it's similar to a bus or how that plays out. But that is something that Cap Metro offers that other cities may not. That being said, it's still a limited service. Totally. And if you are a wheelchair user and you need to get from point A to point B, maybe you don't have time to wait for that Cap Metro service. You should just be able to go down a sidewalk that works to the local bus and get on and get to your destination. So
there's so many angles to all of this, and benefits, and what might not look like it makes a ton of sense up front actually does when you look a little bit deeper into it. And that is all those little things that we just briefly talked about right there are things that we really hope to dive into more in the future as we do more episodes of this podcast. Maybe do more challenges like we did with this one.
I have some great challenge ideas coming up. Some that are going to be really goofy, some practical. I'm really excited about the challenges.
And this one was a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did making it. It was a good time to actually go out there and put it into practice. We learned a lot about it too. Hopefully, we can make them better and better in the future. We were out there just kind of winging it, seeing how it would go. And I'm pretty happy with how it all came out. Big thanks to our friend Michelle for being willing to tag along with us the whole time. We really appreciate it. And
big thanks to Cap Metro for getting us from point A to point B.
We did it. It was a big success. And hopefully, maybe we've gotten a new transit user out of the whole ordeal.
Yeah, hope so.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of Transit Tangents. We are going to have a second episode very similar to this coming up very soon, where we are navigating the city of Austin with somebody who uses transit to go almost everywhere, a very frequent transit user. And we're going to learn some tips and tricks from this person about how they navigate getting around in the city and kind of just look at everything from a different perspective, from a first-time user to someone who uses it all the time.
Yeah, I would say if you compared the two episodes, the next episode is going to be on the other side of the token, as the kids say. Is that is that what you said?
Sure.
All right.
Thanks for that, Chris.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'm saving that dough. Public transit's where it's at. Watch me go. I'm rolling in style with my headphones on, cruising through the city to my favorite song.